Welcome to the regular meeting of the Forsyth County Board of Commissioners. This meeting will be followed by a briefing session, so this will be a fairly long afternoon, but it's good to have everybody with us. During this particular commissioners meeting, Commissioner Gloria Whisenhunt is participating remotely, and therefore this will be considered to be a remote broadcast or meeting. The commissioners are going to vote on most of the issues we have on our agenda, and I doubt seriously if we will not vote on any of them negatively, most of them negatively and positively. Thank you to Commissioner Whisenhunt for being with us remotely, and we'll begin our meeting by asking you to identify why you are not here in person.
Good afternoon. I'm in Atlanta, Georgia for a National Board of Directors meeting.
Well, what's the weather like and what's the population? What are the subjects?
Weather's exactly like yours. Not certain of the other question.
Okay. Thank you very much. Good to have you with us today. We will begin our meeting with an invocation from Mark Key, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance by Commissioner Fleming Elamine. Pastor Key, it's good to have you with us. A member of Main Street United Methodist Church in Kernersville.
That's right. Formerly Mount Tabor. Can I get that in?
That's good.
Let's
Please
pray.
stand.
Eternal and loving God, we gather today mindful of blessings and opportunities. We thank you for shared time with family and loved ones, and food, and all your gifts that you bless us with each day. Today we ask your blessing on our county commissioners. Guide them with wisdom and discernment. Give them knowledge, and may they lead us as good stewards, helping those who are in need and creating opportunities for all. We thank you for our county and this place where we live and work and play. Watch over it, bless it, protect it. Bless our law enforcement officers and first responders and keep them safe. Keep our schools and communities safe from harm. We pray for protection from and for an end to the spread of the coronavirus. Eternal and loving God, we thank you for your love for us and pray that you will always keep love foremost in our thoughts and actions. Amen.
Thank you, Mark Key. And now please remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance, led by Commissioner Fleming Elamine.
I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Today, citizens are interested in many ways about what goes on in our community. Today, we're going to give most people in this county the opportunity to respond to the problems, needs, and interests that might be on your mind today. And we've got a phone number, and I'll repeat it twice, and once again after we get into this. But the telephone number, if you're watching on Channel 13, for expressing anything that you have on your mind regarding the county, the number is 336-422-1200. 336-422-1200. You'll be placed on hold until the public session begins, and that will happen shortly. Members of the, excuse me. Oh, we're going to do that. Yeah. County manager's worried that I won't follow the script. So in that case, we'll just interrupt what I was saying and go right to our clerk to the county commissioners. And I would say to Ashley Sloop, you're going to do a little different operation today, simply because we're going to call your name, and when you respond, just say present, and then we can officially go on with the meeting. And that's all because of this meeting being considered to be remote. Ms. Sloop?
Chairman Plyler?
Present.
We're here. Vice Chairman Martin?
Here.
Commissioner Elamine?
present.
Commissioner Linville?
Here.
Commissioner McDaniel?
Present.
Commissioner Whisenhunt?
Here.
Oh, Commissioner Kaplan?
How many said they were all here?
Everyone.
Okay. Now, the other thing I wanted to mention to all of you in this commissioners' meeting room, if you're interested in participating in the public session today, and you don't want to have to leave the room to get on the telephone to make a telephone call, We would like to have you fill out a card that will be given to Ashley Sloop, the clerk to the county commissioners, and those cards can be found in the lobby just outside of this room. All you have to do is fill it out, take it, give it to Mrs. Sloop, and from there, we will move forward with a public session, including those who are at this meeting, live and in living color, and those who are on Channel 13 on public hold right now. Now, we will continue with our meeting by asking Dr. Christopher Ohl of Wake Forest Baptist Medical School for a COVID-19 update. Dr. Ohl, you may begin.
All right. Can you guys hear me okay? I know we had problems last week.
Loud and clear.
Good. We got through the Thanksgiving holiday, and our cases in the Triad region were relatively stable until today, where it seems they've gone up. Joshua Swift is also on, and he can elaborate on that. And then looking around at the state dashboard, they've also gone up. I think some of this reflects some delayed testing from people who may have waited till after the holiday to go get their test. And then also probably some more congregate settings and people getting together and traveling. And so we've seen more transmission. Of course, all of the buzz this week is about an Omnicron variant. Omicron's actually probably been around since October, but we didn't really hear anything about it until Thanksgiving. Just the short synopsis, I talked about it at length on my Facebook presentation this morning, which you can get off the website, but it looks like it is a bit more transmissible, particularly in South Africa, where it seems to have arisen first. The hospitalizations related to Omicron, though, do not seem to have been an exceptional problem yet in South Africa. We have to wait a little bit longer to know more, but so far, the severity of infection due to Omicron does not appear to be increased. Most of the hospitalizations in South Africa have been in unvaccinated persons, which gives us a little bit of early and possibly promising information that vaccination from our current vaccines should provide some protection against Omicron, particularly against severe disease and hospitalization. So we'll know more about that as time goes on. 2 cases now found here in the U.S. The big question about how predominant it'll become in other areas, particularly here in the U.S., is who's going to win the supervillain fight, like in a Marvel comic book between Omicron and Delta. It's all going to come down to transmission fitness between the two of them. If it turns out to be Omicron, then that's the virus and variant we'll have to deal with. If it turns out it's going to be Delta, then we'll have to keep dealing with Delta like we have been. Either way, I think we have the tools and the ability to keep this to not be a huge problem for us. It could prolong recovery a bit from COVID. Either way, we still have the respiratory viral season to get through in the next 3 months, which is going to include some COVID, not nearly as much as we had last year, but still a fair amount. And then it's also going to include some influenza. We're seeing cases in our region now, as well as other respiratory viruses and crud viruses that cause colds and flu-like symptoms. So best way to avoid all of this still is to get vaccinated for COVID, get vaccinated for flu, get your booster for COVID. If you're planning holiday travel or parties, you can take a test before you go. And that way you make sure you're not an asymptomatic spreader. If everyone else does that in your party group, then it'll be a safer event in the large run. Masks still work and will work against Omicron just like they do against Delta and the other COVID variants. So with that, I can turn it over to Joshua Swift, who I believe is probably next on the agenda.
Dr. Swift, you're on.
All right, good afternoon, Commissioners. I'll pull my presentation up. Okay, you should be able to see this. Basically, as Dr. Old said, we have started to see an uptick in cases, and I believe this is a result of the Thanksgiving holiday. We reported 152 cases today, so that brings our 14-day total to 1,231. So that means we're at 88 cases per day over the last 14 days. So this is a 30 to 40% increase in the last 2 weeks. Percent positive is at 8.8%. You can see the deaths. That number has stayed very stable. So we haven't seen an increase in deaths over the past week. And also you can see the percent of the population that's fully vaccinated versus partially vaccinated. So 69% of adults are now fully vaccinated in Forsyth County. So just a few more slides. You've seen these before. Looking at the cases per week, you can see where we were in August when the Delta surge, how we went down, and now we started to go up. That last week was the week of Thanksgiving, so there's usually a lag in the state reporting. So we saw that go down. I imagine that number will go up for next week for the cases per week in Forsyth County. This next slide is the percent positivity. This is on a weekly rate, not the daily rate that I just showed you. But so we're at 9.1%. Again, you can see the highs that we had during Delta of 14%, and then the lows of mid-June, July. So we are climbing up, and hopefully that'll level off, but it does seem to have a steep incline. Next slide is looking at the vaccination status. You can see the rates that you've seen from week to week for race and by age. We're continuing to see the numbers go up, and they're getting very close to each other as far as race. That's because I believe our outreach that the public health staff and the partners have done in our historically marginalized populations. Next, you can see, looking at the ages, we've had 15% of our young children, 5 to 11 years old, who've gotten their first dose. That's over 5,000 children who've come through the health department, the hospitals, and our partners and clinics. Now 2% have come back to get their second doses. We've started to see those second doses coming back to the health department. And then you can see the way that the numbers continue to climb. I heard some individual a little bit older than me said this is proof that older people are smarter. You can see that over 94% of our 75 years of age and older population have gotten one dose, and 91% are fully vaccinated. From week to week, you can see these numbers, even in our 65 plus and 75 plus, continue to go up each week just a little bit. So that's important to see. Vaccine, this is the availability. We have a vaccine available every day at the health department for adults and children. You've seen the hours during our normal hours from 8 to 5, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Friday, Thursdays till 8. Boosters are now available for all adults, 18 and older, as long as it's been 6 months since Moderna or Pfizer, or 2 months from your Johnson & Johnson. We're really trying to focus hard on children. We've done Saturdays in November, now Saturdays this first part of December. We're asking people to make appointments online or call. If you show up, we can't guarantee an appointment, but so far people have been able to show up and make an appointment. And we're going back. A few weeks ago, we were at Conoke and Gibson for first doses. And today, not today, but on Saturday, we'll be going back to Conoke and Gibson to offer the vaccine. Had 2 successful events out there in November. Next slide, just like Dr. Old said, Omnicron is in the news, is what we're all talking about. November 26th, it was classified as a variant of concern. Yesterday, we had our first cases in the United States that were identified. Early data shows it is more transmissible. CDC strengthened their recommendation for booster doses based on what they're seeing, but more research is needed, what the experts are saying, to determine if it will evade immunity and not clear whether it's more severe. Like Dr. Ola said, those individuals that got COVID before, most were unvaccinated. And again, still, the best thing you can do is get the vaccine. Our numbers are high, but we still have a large proportion of our population, 30%, that haven't gotten fully vaccinated. That's in the adult population, quite higher in our younger population. So the best thing you can do now is get the vaccine. And that concludes my slides. I'd be happy take any questions.
Any questions for Mr. Swift?
Just one question, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Fleming, Elamine.
First, thank you very much, Joshua, for your detailed report. Would you comment on the new pill that was just released in the marketplace and how that distribution will take place?
Excuse me, Mr. Fleming, Mr. Elamine, what was that question? I
The
didn't
new
hear it.
pill that was just released by one of the pharmaceuticals.
I
will that be
would ask,
Okay.
yeah, the preliminary estimates I've heard from the state, but I'll lean on Dr. O, is the supply would not be a large supply early on. But I'll let Dr. O, if you don't mind, if you have any.
Yeah, I can elaborate a little bit. It'll be through pharmacies and retail pharmacies. I think that and available through prescription. We're still waiting for the final FDA conclusion and the EUA and CDC wording on this. I can tell you my enthusiasm for this drug has dropped considerably since we talked about a month ago. It turns out that the trial, which initially looked really promising for reduction of hospitalization and death, which they said initially was a 50% decrease, turns out now is probably more like a 30% decrease, and the actual numbers in the trial went from about 9.5% to 6.7% people hospitalized. So I don't know, maybe that's helpful, but it's not a lot different than some of the other repurposed drugs, and I wish it would be more promising. The other thing is it looks like it won't be able to be used in pregnant women or in breastfeeding women, and people who are on it will need to use contraception because we don't know yet about its effects on human cell RNA structure. So I think that the EUA will eventually come out and say that physicians should have a risk-benefit ratio that'll be waived for every patient, and that the drug really should be considered only in those patients who have test-positive COVID and that are at very high risk for hospitalization, and that are being treated in the first 3 to 5 days of infection.
Does that complete your question, Mr. Fleming?
Yes, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much, Joshua and Dr. O, for your reports. We thank you for being here every time we meet because things change so quickly. Now, we will have a public session. That's coming up in a few minutes. I'd like to give that telephone number one more time in case you missed it. So if you have a problem or a need or there's an interest in an issue that's taking place in our county and you want to talk about it, you can do it today and we'll open the lines in a few minutes. But the telephone number is 336-422-1200. 336-422-1200. You pick that phone call up, give us a call, we'll put you on hold, and as soon as we get to the part that will involve you, we'll certainly put you on the air. Now, the other part of today's meeting is to take a look back at what's been taking place in this county since the beginning of the year. And we do this every year at this time. It is the 2021 year-end review. I'm going to participate, and of course, the vice chairman of this board, the former school superintendent in Winston-Salem, Forsyth County, Don Martin, will complete the report. So first of all, I want to thank the board members for the trust that you've placed in me as your chairman for the last 12 months. I've enjoyed every minute of it. It's been an honor and a privilege to have this role, and I admire your restlessness when it comes to getting things done, and you do that very well. I admire the way you value the differing views. We have a lot of people who don't agree with what we do, a lot of people that do agree with what we do, but that's what we're here for, and it's important that we get that done, and this board has done very well. I admire the way you value differing opinions and keep your opinions many times available for all of us to benefit from. Forsyth County is a great place to live, work, and play, but there's only one problem, and we've talked about that with Dr. Ohl and and Mr. Swift today, and that would be what we're referring to as COVID-19, alias the pandemic. And it's been in everything we do, public and private. On January 2nd, now listen to these figures. On January 2nd in Forsyth County, we had 20,346 cases of the pandemic disease. 225 of those resulted in death, and less than 3,000 doses of vaccine were administered. That's important to notice. 30,000 with it, 3,000 cases of virus available to us. On December 21st or December 1st of 2021, we had, here's another fabulous figure, it's 54,181 cases of COVID-19, 585 deaths. And 2019, we had, this is awful, 19,128 persons fully vaccinated. That's the key. From my perspective, from the Public Health Department's perspective, from Forsyth Medical Center, Novant, and from Atrium North Carolina Baptist Hospital. The highest weekly count was 745. That took place in early January. And the lowest county count was in June of this year and went all the way down to 37 cases. Now, having said all of that, I'm going to ask our Vice Chairman, Don Martin, who will give you the rest of the good news and the bad news regarding the pandemic.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I'd certainly like to echo your previous thanks to fellow commissioners for allowing me to serve as your vice chairman this year. As the chairman said earlier, the coronavirus has impacted basically the community and the world in many ways, and every local government has had to respond to it with its available resources and the courage and trust of citizens. This is our role, and this has certainly has shifted and adapted throughout the response to include leading emergency management and public health response in the early phase, the pre-vaccine testing and tracing stages, and in 2021, the mass distribution of the vaccine, while simultaneously providing both the state-mandated and other services expected by the community. During this uncertain and difficult period, commissioners and county staff have worked together well. And I think I want to particularly thank our county manager, Dudley Watts, and all the county staff, particularly the health department staff, as we're talking about the virus, and the other county staff who have been supportive of this coronavirus response. So a lot of thanks to staff that have stepped up, who had full-time jobs to begin with, to make this as I think, as successful a response as we could. COVID clearly has created new policy-related challenges at the state and federal government level. In fact, the federal government has amassed considerable resources to combat the public health and economic challenges of the virus. And last year, we talked about how we allocated CARES Act funds to the response. That was a much smaller pool of dollars. And then earlier this calendar year, we received the American Rescue Plan Act funds with more complicated guidelines, a longer spending horizon, and a lot more money. We've had about currently, we have about 50 million left to allocate. And our staff has kind of been walking us through all the complexities of the guidelines as we consider all number of eligible projects. And again, all the folks on the staff, I mean, this has been a massive 178 proposals, totaling, about 200 million in requests, actually trying to go through, evaluate those, make recommendations, some maybe go to some other places. And all those folks that have been working on that also had full-time jobs and they've had to carve out time to do it. So again, there's sort of a common thread of thanking staff members for really stepping up to work on that. We've had a number of other issues, and I would actually put this in the related to the coronavirus, but we've had an increase in gun violence in our community, particularly with youth. It is one of the priorities that needs to be addressed with our American Rescue Plan Act funds, ARPA for short. This tragic reality has been exacerbated by COVID, and we are poised to address it as we receive the report from the nonprofit Cures Violence Global. They're actually coming next week. They've been studying us for the last 3 months. This effort, combined with additional programming for youth activities and the return of in-person learning and normal extracurricular activities, we hope will help resist violence. Other challenges have impacted the nation and our own ability to deliver services, including supply chain issues and labor shortages. As a governing body, we have adjusted by accelerating approval of difficult-to-purchase items, particularly ambulances, for example, and working to recognize the efforts of our outstanding staff through an aggressive premium pay plan. Early data suggests that we will continue to deal with the inflation that is driven, at least in part, by low labor participation rates combined with growing economy in need of workers. And so our challenge will be to convert these conflicting circumstances into an opportunity for students, both in K-12 as well as our community college systems. While the COVID response and the related impacts of the virus consumed us over the last year, the normal business of the county has moved along, and I will give you just a couple of examples. 2021 was a reappraisal year. Every 4 years, the county reappraises all real property to maintain an equitable and fair system of taxation, which we rely on to fund local government. John Burgess and our excellent staff in the tax office completed this work and presented to us a schedule of values and a reappraisal that accurately reflects the true value of real property as of January 1, 2021. The tax office handled appeals in a fair manner, and the county lowered the tax rate from 74.35 to 67.78 cents, with only a very slight increase when compared to the revenue neutral rate. In fact, it was so slight, it was only really 0.78 cents. And it included the program debt leveling increase originally planned for 2021. So we were actually able to move forward and pay off some debt as a part of that. And it adjusted our debt payoff plan slightly, which required a slight increase from the revenue neutral. Every 10 years after the census data is available, local governments are required to evaluate the electoral districts from which county commissioners are elected. I'm pleased to say that County Attorney Gordon Watkins and Matt Forsyth, and our staff here, evaluated many options and presented them in a very clear and straightforward process. We held several public meetings and presentations to ensure a trustworthy process that is sometimes rare in the domain of politics. And throughout the year, we continue to grow our local economy through partnerships with organizations such as the Greater Winston Inc., Center for Creative Economies, Visit Winston-Salem, and continue to grow the Smith Reynolds Airport through the recommendations in the Aerotropolis study. The sale of Lansing Drive property to facilitate a new Garner Foods manufacturing plant generated revenue to relocate the school maintenance operation, and that's going to be replaced from that site, and more importantly, create new jobs. And it's a significant impact to improve a marginal area of the county. The board has approved other incentive packages with the requirements of increased tax base and job creation such as Ardagh Metal. We just had actually a groundbreaking this week. Actually, participation getting ready to move into a new warehouse for aluminum cans. Also, Nature's Value is coming from New York, a vitamin manufacturer. Earlier in the year, the board enhanced our presence in Raleigh by hiring a lobbyist to represent the county, and Ashley Perkinson has worked tirelessly to advocate for county projects and interest with the General Assembly. And this proved to be a fortuitous given the strong financial position of the state and the strong leadership of our local delegation. And after several years without a comprehensive budget, in November, the General Assembly passed a budget with a governor's signature that included more than $300 million in funding for Forsyth County, various specified projects in addition to the routine programs where the county is a service provider for the state. The board took a bold step and realigned with Partners Health Management as its LME MCO, managed care organization, to improve the quality of mental health, substance abuse, and IDD services. On November the 1st, Partners assumed responsibility for these services, And the early indication is that our citizens who rely on the public system for behavioral health services will benefit greatly through this transition. And a lot of folks in our staff had to adjust to that too, another new task. Over the last 12 months, many significant capital projects began to take shape in the concept, in the conception as well as through construction. And these include the new courthouse going up right next door. In fact, the steel frame is approaching completion. An airport terminal renovation, huge, about a $20 million project plus. Some new hangar projects at the airport that are basically already leased before they're built. Blues Lake Park, which is a new park in Forsyth County up in the northeast corner. Tanglewood Clubhouse, actually replacement. The Clyde Museum just down the street, brand new replacement, and the new library in Clemens. So it's been a lot of work this year, and clearly 2022 upcoming will have its challenges. But I think with the really excellent employees we have in the county, outstanding, and I hope with our county commission support, by this time next year, as we give this report again, hopefully we'll be in even a better place. So thank you, Mr. Chairman, for that opportunity.
Thank you for a complete report. That report was very, very good, and to be honest with you folks, I admire your patience in the commissioners' meeting room today, because we have a lot of information. In some cases, it's required that we pass this along to you, but in other cases, we want to make sure that you don't get out of here without having some idea how your tax dollars are being spent. And I can assure you we're thinking very carefully about it every day. Before we begin the business session of the meeting, I would like to remind the commissioners that we're going to be voting today, but it's going to be a little different. And that's primarily because we are considered, as I said earlier, a remote type meeting. And what we're going to do, and we're going to take advantage of our clerk Ashley Sloop, is ask her to do what she did at the beginning by calling the roll, but not calling the roll particularly. When you get ready to make a motion, whether it's for or against or whatever, please state your name and be called by the clerk. And I think that's the way we're going to do it, isn't it, Ashley? Or you're going to call their name and they will respond.
If a commissioner makes a motion or a second, they need to state their name aloud, and then we will do roll call for the final vote.
Okay, and if you make a motion or a second, please state your name to say what you're doing. We're getting close to getting into the agenda, which is quite long today. The second item on this agenda is the transfer of pending business to the successor board. Do I hear a motion and a second?
Elamine, so moved.
Motion by Commissioner Fleming Elamine, second.
Martin, second.
Second by Commissioner Don Martin. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously, and we will turn them,
Mr. Chairman,
yes?
we need to do the roll call for the vote, please.
Okay. You know, I just finished talking about that, and first thing I did was just do it normally. All right, you're on the spot. Go right ahead.
Chairman Plyler,
Dave Flyler, and I'm in favor of the vote.
Vice Chairman Martin,
Yes.
Commissioner Elamine,
Yes.
Commissioner Kaplan, Commissioner Linville, Commissioner McDaniel, Commissioner Wisenhunt.
Aye.
Good, Gloria. That sounded good from Atlanta. The next item on the agenda is a resolution approving the revised Board of Commissioners 2021 meeting schedule, which we've got in our hands. Mrs. Sloop.
Mr. Chairman, do you mind if we go back to number 3 on the agenda?
No, I have no problems at all. Let me find number 3 on the agenda. It's interesting.
Election of chairman.
Oh, did I forget that?
That's okay. And
Well, for the time being, I'm going to turn the meeting over to Dudley Watts. Mr. Watts.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Appreciate that. All right, so I have the responsibility, which I'm always a little uncomfortable with, of just guiding us through the election of the chairman and vice chairman for the ensuing fiscal year. So I will open the floor for nominations for chairman to serve as your chairman for the next year.
Elamine, I'd like to nominate Dave Flyler for chairman for next year.
Thank you. Are there any other names that want to be entered into nominations? If not, is there a second which would close the nominations and elect Commissioner Plyler to serve as the chairman for the ensuing year?
Martin, second.
Okay. It's all you, Madam Clerk.
Thank you. Vice Chairman Martin,
Yes.
Commissioner Elamine,
Yes.
Commissioner Kaplan, Commissioner Linville, Commissioner McDaniel, Commissioner Wizenhut,
Aye.
Chairman Plyler.
Yes.
All right. Very good, Mr. Chairman. I'll continue with Vice Chairman, then I'll turn it back over to you.
Okay.
The floor is open for nominations for Vice Chairman to serve as your Vice Chairman for the ensuing fiscal year or calendar year.
I nominate Chairman Don Martin.
Okay.
Tanya
Second.
McDaniel.
Oh, Elamine, second.
Okay. Are there any other nominations for Vice Chairman? If not, is there a second which will close the nominations and elect Commissioner Martin to serve as your Vice Chairman for the ensuing fiscal year?
Elamine, second.
Chairman Plyler,
Yes.
Vice Chairman Martin,
Yes.
Commissioner Elamine,
Yes.
Commissioner Kaplan, Commissioner Linville, Commissioner McDaniel, Commissioner Wizenhut.
Aye.
All right, now we're going to move on to another question here, another item, and the next item on the agenda is a resolution updating bonds for various county officials. Do I hear a motion in a second? I will make the motion to approve.
Second, Elamine.
All in favor?
Roll call.
Chairman Plyler,
Yes?
Vice Chairman Martin,
Yes.
Commissioner Elamine,
Yes.
Commissioner Kaplan, Commissioner Linville, Commissioner McDaniel,
Aye.
Commissioner Wizenhut.
So now we have a chairman, a vice chairman, a county manager, and you're still employed, right? That's good. All right, let's see. I got a couple of other items I want to make sure I get. Oh, this is a good one. I like this. The next item on the agenda is a resolution giving notice of intention to reduce the salary, grievances, and other compensation of a non-incumbent sheriff of Forsyth County who takes office in December 2022.
Mr. Chairman, you might want to have our attorney just quickly describe that one. That's a fairly unusual one, and sometimes it's
I
misconstrued.
not only would like to, I can't wait to see what he has to say.
Mr. Chairman, the statutes are worded in an unusual way that if you did not take this action and someone new was elected sheriff in November of 2022, if that person has no experience in law enforcement or being a sheriff, you as a board might want to pay that person a lower salary than the current sheriff. If you don't take any action, then you're constrained by the sheriff's current salary. And so what this matter does is we're required to do it at least 2 weeks before the close of the filing period to run for the office of sheriff. And so as you all know, filing opens on Monday and it runs through the following Friday. And so this will be within that 2-week period, and it will allow you some flexibility if someone else is elected sheriff next year.
I presume he's been informed of that, is that correct?
Yeah, this is a standard step you take every 4 years. Also, it affects the filing fee, and so the lower the number here, the lower the filing fee. So the filing fee is 1% of the salary set here. The filing fee will be $992.
Okay, Mrs. Sloop,
Chairman, I do have a question.
who has a question?
I have a question.
Oh, I'm sorry, I was looking at
No
Mrs. Sloop.
worries.
Go right ahead.
No worries. Gordon, so that I'm very clear, when our sheriff is reelected, his salary is not going to be reset here. It'll stay where it is, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, fair enough. Thank you.
Good. Mrs. Sloop.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that we adopt this resolution. Martin?
I'll second the motion.
Chairman Plyler,
Yes.
Vice Chairman Martin,
Yes.
Commissioner Elamine,
Yes.
Commissioner Kaplan, Commissioner McDaniel,
Aye.
Commissioner Linville, Commissioner Wizenhunt.
Aye.
Now, the next item on the agenda is a resolution adopting the 2022 Board of Commissioners meeting schedule. Do I hear a motion?
Elamine, move to approve.
I will second the motion. Mrs. Sloop?
Chairman Plyler,
Yes.
Vice Chairman Martin,
Yes.
Commissioner Elamine,
Yes.
Commissioner Kaplan, Commissioner Linville, Commissioner McDaniel,
Aye.
Commissioner Wizenhunt.
Aye.
Now, as we have done in the past, we're going to continue that opportunity for each commissioner to make some type of expression regarding the problems, needs, and interests of the county as they see it. We'll begin with Commissioner Richard Linville. Richard has been, how long have you been a commissioner, Richard?
A while.
Well, you're going to start all this because I know you've got more years than most people, so you're on.
I've been here 40 years.
Whoa.
To the people of Forsyth County.
Congratulations.
This has been an unusual year, probably one of the most unusual ones that county's had in a long time, and hopefully this will be, we won't have another unusual year like this for some time to come. And thank the employees for all of the work that they, their normal workload, as well as the additional work that has been caused and additional things needed to be done. This has been lots of things, probably more of it related to a health department, but it spread further than that of additional things that needed to be done, and the employees served well in doing that, as they always do. I guess they were up to the task, and this is one of those things that just seemed like that nobody didn't know all of the answers. There's a lot of people knew a lot of answers of what needed to be done, and just kind of, I guess, to some degree, found our way along. We just didn't know what was going to happen, but it's been a lot of sickness, people passing, and heartbreak of many people, and that we shouldn't forget that. I guess those of us that's been able to survive it ought to be thankful. I don't like to get shots, but when it was it turned out, I made my mind up I was going to do that whenever it came about, and by the age it came a little bit quicker than I thought, and so I was ready to go. And it's the health director mentioned it, something to the effect maybe that older people were smarter than younger people. Well, I didn't necessarily see it that way. I just know as you get older and you have some kind of health problem, it's more difficult to recover from it. So I was hoping it would help, and I hope it has. It has, I believe, and hope it continues to, and for all of the people, because I've seen some that, in fact, I had a friend that passed not long ago, maybe a month, and I'm sure many of us, or maybe all, has known people that was either sick or has passed. So those of us that have survived and not been sick, I'm thankful, and I believe that everyone else is too.
Commissioner Tanya McDaniel.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you, Vice Chairman, for your report earlier. I wanted to say to Pastor Key today, thank you for setting the spirit for my comments today. I always like to describe my experience, my comments with a word, and this year my word is experience. In my experience this year, there has been lessons and blessings. I believe that we are learning to listen to our constituencies, which are lessons. We also have learned how to navigate through this pandemic. We are learning how to allocate the ARPA funding, but it's also been a blessing for us to have been able to acquire the $74 million in ARPA funding to assist our constituency and the partnerships with the rentals and utilities for our communities. It's a blessing if you go outside to see our new Justice Center up and coming. It's also been a blessing to share in the premium pay for our staff because we know that they work diligently and very hard. And out of this experience, it's been a pleasure to serve in this capacity in my first term. In 2022, I am hopeful that we are moving the needle to build back better for Forsyth County, to use our dollars to of the 80% in our qualified census tract. And I just wanted to say thank you to the staff, thank you to the constituency for your trust, and also for the commissioners for allowing me to serve alongside you. So thank you.
Commissioner Don Martin.
I won't repeat what I said earlier, but I certainly thank colleagues and certainly thank our staff for, I think, it was a difficult and challenging year, but I feel like we're on the right side of it now and have some optimism towards 2022.
Commissioner Ted Kaplan.
Yeah, everybody said a lot, and I agree with all of it, but really thank you to Dudley and the staff and to my fellow commissioners for what could have been a disastrous year, and I think we did very well pulling it through. And I hope we continue that road, and thank you all, thank you my constituents, and all of you are here today.
Commissioner Fleming Elamine.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll be brief. First, to thank the county staff. I would go on the weekends with them to participate in giving shots to the community, or at least observe. I didn't give any shots. But just to see them out there every weekend, after weekend, after weekend, DSS and the Public Health Department committed to making sure our county was safe. To me, your health is first, because without health, what do you really have? So they rolled up their sleeves and got busy and spread throughout this whole community, making sure that happened. So I want to commend them under the leadership of Assistant County Manager Chantel Robinson specifically, and our Director of Public Health, Joshua Swift. Beyond that, one of the other highlights of our county State of the Union was that this board had a vote. It was 4-3. But it was a goal to establish 80% of our ARPA funds into qualified census tract communities. That's unique in North Carolina. And I participate on a 7-state board with some other southern states. No one else has done that. So I'm sure we will get in some reports in the very near future on how this is coming about. I think we have the guideline established, and I'm very proud of what the staff has done thus far to make sure that happens. And I want to thank my colleagues too. You don't see us, get into a lot of debates up here, but we do in our own chambers. We agree to disagree politely, and then we, of course, have our discussions publicly. But we have a very cooperative spirit generally on this board, and that's unique. And I've been around the barn for 6 or 9 years now, and it's very rare that you see that. Some people stop speaking to each other because you don't agree with them, but that's not the spirit of this board. So thank you, colleagues. Thank you, constituents. There's one thing I'm concerned about, specifically about District 8. I looked at the statistics of District 8, that I represent specifically. Only 1% of that population has an income of $200,000 or more. 15,000 households make less than $16,000 a year, which is, to me, abject poverty. So that's one issue I hope in 2022 we can address, that is economic revival in District 8 on a greater scale, and ensure quality of life there that all of us can appreciate across the whole county. Thank you very much, and thank you for the outstanding manager and Dudley Watts that we have, because believe me, other counties would like to steal him from us. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Gloria Whisenhunt in Atlanta.
Thank you so much. You know, last year during this same commissioner comments, we were all saying thank you to the staff for all their hard work during the pandemic. I don't think any of us ever dreamed we would be repeating the same phrases over again this year. And I think I meant it from the bottom of my heart last year, how grateful I was to each of our employees and the hard work they were doing. But this year is even more important because you have stepped up yet again another year. And I think we also should say thank you to your families. I'm sure your families have suffered through this with your long hours, being so tired and worn out. So not only do I thank you all, each of our employees, I thank your families also. And Dudley, I continue to thank you for your talent of being able to identify really good people. We have such a wonderful staff, and I don't think that the residents of Forsyth County have any idea how dedicated these folks are to making Forsyth County a better place. So thank you, Dudley. I appreciate that. But I do think we've had a very progressive year, and I'm proud of what has been accomplished this year. So I'll just say Merry Christmas to each of you and a Happy New Year, and hope to see you next week.
Thank you, Gloria. I will just say briefly, too, that I agree with everything the board has said today. And we're very fortunate to have the opportunity to serve the people of Forsyth County, and we will continue to do that. I do realize that we've been doing this particular portion of the meeting for 55 minutes, and we haven't even begun the agenda for the meeting, which will be quite long. And following that, we will have another briefing session on the next meeting we'll have, which I think is December 16th. So with that in mind, we'll move forward and try to finish by a little after 3 o'clock. And the other part of this equation is we've got people who've been holding on for the public hearing now for about, what, Mrs. Sloop, 35, 45 minutes.
That's right. Mr. Chairman, before we go into the public hearings, do you mind going back and asking for approval of the 2022 Commissioners' meeting schedule?
I certainly will do that. The 2022 Commissioners' meeting schedule. Do I have a motion on that?
I'd like to make a motion, Martin.
Motion by Commissioner Don Martin. I'll second the motion. Mrs. Sloop?
Chairman Plyler?
Yes.
Vice Chairman Martin?
Yes.
Commissioner Elamine?
Yes.
Commissioner Kaplan? Commissioner Linville? Commissioner McDaniel? Commissioner Whisenhunt?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. The 10th item on the agenda is a public hearing on an ordinance that happens on the 5th and 11th of the UDO, which has specific information and standards for the storage of services set forth in the agenda item number 10. That's kind of a complicated item, but I have the first speaker on this will be Tiffany White from the Planning Department. Tiffany?
Let me get this pulled up. Okay, hopefully everybody can see that. Good afternoon, Chairman Plyler and Commissioners. I'm here to present on UDO-CC 11, which is a request from Planning and Development Services staff to amend Sections 5 and 11 of the UDO to revise standards for storage services retail. Over the past few years, staff has seen an increase in requests for self-storage buildings, especially those that have internal access. Internal access facilities have become the dominant self-storage model in many communities, and many are located near neighborhoods. As part of its review of these facilities, the Planning Board has often recommended design modifications to help these projects better fit in with the character of the surrounding neighborhoods. The Planning Board asked staff to develop basic ordinance standards for storage facilities to better reflect expectations for such projects and to reduce the negotiation required for individual projects. Based on research and best practices, staff is proposing different standards for external access and internal access storage facilities. These amended standards will not affect existing storage service retail buildings, but will only apply to new development going forward. For some information here, external access standards are for those projects that have the kind of traditional model for storage service, where the units are accessed from exterior roll-up doors. Outdoor storage for property such as RVs and boats is allowed with these facilities, but must be screened in the HB and GB zoning districts. The standards for internal access are the ones that have changed the most with this request. These units are the type that are accessed from interior doors and corridors. Exterior storage for boats and RVs is not allowed with this use. We are specifying siding materials like stone and brick and architectural detailing, along with windows and transparency along public-facing facades, and requiring that the building facades be articulated, so have some dimension to them to avoid long, uninterrupted walls and to improve compatibility with the neighborhoods in which they're located. This amendment proposes allowing internal access storage in GOLB and MRBS zoning, which is an expansion of the districts where it's allowed, given its similar impacts to other uses that are currently allowed in these zoning districts. Internal access storage buildings in the PB and LB districts would be allowed only with a special use permit from the elected body and would require a mix of non-residential uses along the street level right-of-way within those districts. Staff believes that the proposed revisions to storage service retail standards will provide clarity in the project review process and reduce the need for the design of such projects to be negotiated on an individual basis. Proposed standards for the internal access buildings, including buildings materials requirements, will enhance the compatibility of these projects with the surrounding businesses and neighborhoods. The Planning Board recommended approval of UDO-CC 11 with an 8-to-1 vote at their June 2021 work session, and City Council unanimously approved UDO-CC 11 at their October 4th, 2021 meeting. And with that, I'm available for questions.
Comments or questions? Discussion? Yes, go ahead.
Chairman, I do have a question. I've seen these in our communities, and any thoughts or surveys done relative to if they reduce tax rates or in the community, or gives an increase to tax rates in the community?
So to clarify, your question is, what is the tax revenue potential for these types of?
Yeah. I mean, does it help the help the tax rate in the real estate in a community, or does it bring it down?
I don't believe there's any conclusive study. If you look at, again, we're kind of bifurcating the ordinance and we're going with two distinct uses, kind of the internal and the external. The predominant market that we've seen recently has been for the internal access. And if you look at where those have gone, you have them in areas near residential properties along Robin Hood, out at the villages of Robin Hood. That's two in that area. We've had, I believe, one approved recently downtown. I think the market would show that they don't have a negative impact on property values. The ones that are externally accessed are traditionally in your heavier industrial areas and in your heavy commercial areas like highway business. You're actually getting ready to have a zoning case next for a GIS project out on Reynolda Road that it's already predominantly zoned GIS, and they're rezoning the rest of the property for the use storage services retail, and it's externally accessed. Those probably would have a more negative impact upon property values, but generally they're located in areas that are more heavily commercial industrial, so you already kind of have that impact with those other associated uses. So long story short, I don't think there's a negative impact on property values.
Okay, fair enough. Thank you.
Additional questions or comments? Okay, thank you, Ms. White. Appreciate that.
Thank you.
This is a public hearing, and speakers will have up to 15 minutes to speak in favor of the request and 15 minutes to speak in opposition. Is there anyone wishing to speak in favor of the request? Do we have anyone who would speak in opposition to the request? If not, I will declare the public hearing closed. Do I hear a motion and a second?
So move, Elamine.
I'll second the motion. Ms. Sloop?
Chairman Plyler,
Yes.
Vice Chairman Martin,
Yes.
Commissioner Elamine,
Yes.
Commissioner Kaplan, Commissioner Linville, Commissioner McDaniel,
Aye.
Commissioner Wizenhunt.
Now, the next item I'm sorry. The next item on the agenda is a public hearing on the petition of Southeast Land Holdings, LLC, from GIS to RS20 and to GIS is set forth in the agenda item of number 11. The first speaker is Chris Murphy of the Planning Department. Mr. Murphy.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good afternoon, Chairman and County Commissioners. This is a request of Southeast Land Holdings LLC to rezone a 29.6 acre parcel located on the northwest side of Renota Road from GIS and RS20 to a consolidated GIS zoning district. Here is the subject property shown on the Legacy Growth Management Area Plan map out on Renota Road towards the northwest portion of the county. Here is the subject property highlighted in yellow. You'll see the GIS portion of the property is the current GIS portion is the red portion within the red boundary, and the area that is RS20 is outside of that red boundary. And again, they are proposing to rezone the entire yellow portion to the use or to the zoning district GIS. This is the subject property shown on the countywide aerial photo map. This is the location of 67 Motors, and that use will continue, but they are asking for a number of other uses as part of the GIS, but the site plan before you contemplates keeping the motor vehicle wrecking and dismantling yard and has a new externally accessed storage services retail use associated with it. This is the subject property as viewed from Renota Road. This is the intersection of Renota Road and Hoosier Road. This is looking across Renota Road from the subject property. This is the subject property looking towards the northeast. Subject property is there on the left side of Renota. This is looking southeast on Renota Road. The site is to the left. I think that's actually wrong. It's looking northeast on Renota Road. Here is the area plan map. This is located in the North Suburban Area Plan Update, which was adopted in 2012, and it recommends the subject property be zoned and used for industrial purposes. This is the site plan associated with case F1610. You'll notice that the balance of the site that's currently developed for 67 Motors, the motor vehicle wrecking and dismantling yard portion is, will continue to be used that way, but the site to the western side of this site plan shows and contemplates 5 additional new buildings for externally accessed storage service retail use. Here are the building elevations associated with the project. And the text amendment that you saw earlier does not impact this use itself. The externally accessed storage service retail use generally did not have a lot of changes with that. It was mainly focused on the internally accessed. Just as a summary, the majority of the site is already zoned GIS. The area plan recommends industrial land use for the subject property. The use storage services retail typically generates limited trips. The request includes a broad list of intense uses which may have greater offsite impacts, but changing to a new use would more than likely require a site plan amendment that would have to come back before the county commissioners. At their October 14th planning board public hearing, the planning board recommended 8-1 to recommend approval of this request to the county commissioners. And the site plan does meet your requirements. And with that, I'll be glad to answer any questions.
Questions for Mr. Murphy? Or comments?
One question, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
Chris, in general, do we have a series of meetings when no speakers come in opposition to the planning board, or is this the exception to the rule?
I'm sorry, I didn't.
In general, when you have no speakers present in opposition to a planning board decision, is that a pretty standard characteristic of those meetings?
Not necessarily. It's really just, I mean, it depends on the case. You'll hear one in probably a month from now that had substantial opposition. It's for Love's Truck Stop, and that will come to you in January. You know, again, it's a mixed bag. It really just depends on the project and the level of concern that it may bring about.
Additional comments? Okay, thank you, Mr. Murphy. This is a public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak in favor of the request, you have 15 minutes to make that comment, 15-minute total. If you're in opposition to the proposal, it'll be 15 minutes for those who are opposed to the comments. Anyone in favor of a comment, proposal?
Yes.
You are
Yes,
it. Okay, if you could identify yourself and
I'm
your
Bo
address.
Houff. I'm with Blanco Tackleberry Law Firm. We're now located at 404 North Marshall Street in the Journal-Sentinel building.
Okay.
And we're happy to be there. I'm here on behalf of Southeast Land Holdings LLC to speak in behalf of this. I know you have a loaded agenda, and we certainly agree with the planning staff report, and we agree with the recommendation of the planning board. I'm happy to answer questions, but I don't know if I need
Questions or comments? Not a one.
Thank you.
Thank you for your patience. Appreciate it very much. Do we have anyone else who will speak in favor of the proposal? If not, anyone to speak in opposition to the proposal? I see none, therefore I will declare the public hearing closed. Do I hear a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion. This is Martin. I'd like to make a motion that zoning map amendment F 1610, including the site plan and special use district, be approved, and on the basis of the following. The proposed special use zoning map amendment as petitioned by Southeast Land Holding LLC to rezone 29.6 acre piece of property from GIS, General Industrial Special Use, and RS20, Residential Single Family 20,000 square foot minimum lot size, to GIS, General Industrial Special Use, with uses set forth in the ordinance, is consistent with the recommendations of the Legacy Comprehensive Plan and reasonable are in the public interest, best public interest, because one, the subject property is partially developed is a partially developed site containing an automobile salvage yard and wooded area, is located at 6775 and 6785 Renolda Road, and the great majority of the subject property is currently zoned GIS and is surrounded by properties zoned RS20. The proposed GIS zoning is intended to accommodate a wide range of assembling, fabricating, manufacturing, and other activities, including storage. The proposed use and site plan feature that construction of five storage buildings and the renovation of an existing building to an office for the storage facility. 4, the proposed use is not expected to significantly affect nearby traffic. And 5, most of the subject property is already zoned GIS, and the proposed industrial uses are consistent with the North Suburban Area Plan update and the Doral Drive Renolda Road interchange plan, which both recommend industrial use for the entire property.
City Planner, I'll second the motion. Mrs. Sloop?
Chairman Plyler,
Yes.
Vice Chairman Martin,
Yes.
Commissioner Elamine,
Yes.
Commissioner Kaplan, Commissioner Linville, Commissioner McDaniel,
Aye.
Commissioner Wisenhunt.
Aye.
Couple of items. The motion passes unanimously. I will suggest that we have one more hearing on the public hearing. If we complete that, then we'll get to the public session, which will allow people to speak about problems, needs, and interests in the community. And I would also remind those in the commissioners' meeting room that you go outside, fill out a speaker's card, take it to Ashley Sloop over to my right, and you're in good shape. Next item on the agenda is a hearing on a zoning petition of Michelle and Ronnie Goodson from GI and RM8 to GI as set forth in agenda item number 12. Chris Murphy is the man from the Planning Department.
Thank you again, Mr. Chairman, and again, good afternoon, Chairman and Board. Yes, this is F-1611, and it is a request to rezone from both GI and RM8 to GI on a 2.28 acre tract on the west side of Dillon Farm Road, which is southeast of New Walkertown Road. Here is the subject property shown on the Legacy Growth Management Area Plan map. And here is the site shown in yellow, again, a mix of both GI and RM8 zoned property there on the southeast side of New Walkertown Road on Dillon Farm Road. And again, this is the subject property highlighted in yellow on the countywide aerial photography. This is looking north on Dillon Farm Road. The site would be to the left. This is looking south on Dillon Farm Road. The site is there. It's actually that building there, which was a former daycare. This is looking at the adjacent property to the south. And this is looking north on Dillon Farm Road. The site is to the west. This is the area plan map, and the area plan for this case recognized the existing institutional use of the daycare and recommended that as its land use, which is typical when we have an existing business that's in operation, but the balance of the property surrounding it was recommended for industrial. So as part of this request, this is expanding existing industrial zoning in the county, and it does increase opportunity for developing such uses. Since this is a vacant institutional recommended property and institutional zone property, because daycares are allowed in the RM8 district, staff feels it's reasonable to extend that industrial zoning to this parcel. The request would also potentially revitalize an underutilized industrial site, as recommended in the Walkertown Area Plan. Legacy 2030 also recognizes the scarcity of industrially zoned properties in Forsyth County and recommends redevelopment of existing sites. This item was heard at the October 14th, 2021 public hearing of the Planning Board. There were no speakers in opposition, and this item was recommended for approval unanimously. And with that, I'll be glad to answer any questions.
Questions or comments for Mr. Murphy? Okay, thank you, sir. This is a public hearing. People who are in favor of the request will be given up to 15 minutes to speak. Those who are in opposition to the request will be given up to 15 minutes to speak in opposition. Do we have anyone who will speak in favor of the request? Do we have anyone who would speak in opposition to the request? Seeing none on either side, I'll declare the public hearing closed. Do I hear a motion?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, this is Martin. I move that the zoning map amendment F-1611 be approved on the basis of the following. The proposed general use zoning map amendment as presented by Michelle Goodson and petitioned by Michelle Goodson and Ronnie Goodson to rezone a 2.28 acre property from GI industrial and RM8 residential multifamily 8 units per acre to GI general industrial is consistent with the recommendations of the Legacy Comprehensive Plan and is reasonable in the public interest because, one, the subject property located at 3400 and 3420 Dillon Farm Road is the site of a motor vehicle storage yard and a residential structure and is adjacent to property zone GI and RS9 with adjacent uses being motor vehicle storage yard, industrial, and single-family houses. Two, the proposed GI zoning is intended to accommodate a wide range of assembling, fabricating, manufacturing, and other industrial uses in growth management areas 1, 2, and 3. Three, the subject property is located in growth management area 3, which is consistent with GI zoning and is adjacent to properties with compatible GI zoning and uses. And 4, much of the subject property is currently zoned GI, and the proposed GI zoning for the entire site would be consistent with the Walkertown Area Plan update, which recommends the revitalization of older industrial sites.
This is Commissioner Plyler. I will second the motion. All in favor, say aye.
Roll call.
I'm sorry, roll call. Mrs. Sloop?
Chairman Plyler,
Okay, yes.
Vice Chairman Martin,
Yes.
Commissioner Elamine, Commissioner Kaplan, Commissioner Linville, Commissioner McDaniel, Commissioner Wizenhunt.
Aye.
And the motion carries unanimously. Next item on the agenda is approval of minutes for the meetings of November 4th, 2021. Do I hear a motion? Motion to approve, I'm sorry, Commissioner, Mrs. Sloop. I'm going batty up here.
Mr. Chairman, will you call for a second, please?
Martin, second.
Good.
Chairman Plyler,
Yes.
Vice Chairman Martin,
Yes.
Commissioner Elamine, Commissioner Kaplan, Commissioner Linville, Commissioner McDaniel, Commissioner Wizenhunt.
Aye.
Mrs. Wizenhunt, you had a time in Atlanta, haven't you? And the motion does pass unanimously, and we'll turn the meeting over to County Manager Dudley Watts. Or would you like to get into the public hearing?
Public session, yes, sir.
Public session, all right. Mrs. Sloop, you are on.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We have 3 speaker cards for folks who are here in person, and then we have 2 folks who have called online. How would you like to start?
Either one. You're the
Okay.
boss.
All right, we'll start with the cards today. Our first speaker will be Valerie Glass. Please come forward, state your name and address for the record.
Thank you for your patience today.
Thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Valerie Glass, and my address is 432 Springdale Avenue in Winston-Salem. I'm also the Executive Director of Triad Restorative Justice, which is an organization that, among other things, serves youth who have been justice involved here in Forsyth County. I, along with several other youth organizations, have been advocating for Cure Violence to come for the past year. So we've been excited and pleased to be part of those community conversations that have been happening for the past couple of weeks. And I'm excited to see the possibility of that happening here in our area. My program gets referrals from juvenile court and from schools, and so we are very aware of the issues of what's happening with youth violence and gang-related violence. We're able to sit down and work with these kids and really listen to them. And these kids are struggling. They're struggling with emotions. They're struggling with knowing how to resolve conflict. They're struggling with family conflict and school conflict. They're struggling with the impact of trauma in their lives and the impact of economic hardships, the impact of other inequities that are in our community. The causes of this violence that's happening, they're very complicated. They're deep. And every kid is dealing with something different in a unique way. This is not something that one single program alone can address. We need to support the work of a coalition building in our community to kind of take a collaborative and holistic approach to what's happening. We already have amazing people in our community who are doing really awesome work. There are individuals and small organizations who are out there that are building relationships with kids. There are people there who really know how to pour their lives into a youth and help them to make the positive life transformations that we need. But these groups are limited just because of a lack of capacity and resources. We need resources for sustained long-term support to address the depth of the need here in Forsyth County. We need to invest in these innovative grassroots programs that are already doing the work, those who are already out there building the relationships. We need to support these organizations and build their capacity so that they can do their job better and they can reach more of our youth. I fully support the work of the Women's Gun Violence Prevention Coalition and Action for Equity, who are pulling together a lot of these community groups who are already doing violence intervention work in our neighborhoods, who would also be a very powerful host for the Cure Violence program, as well as the efforts of partnerships like My Brother and Sisters Keeper and Eversley Little Village, who are building up mentoring programs and other early intervention and holistic approaches to prevention, which are also part of the Women's Gun Violence Prevention Coalition's proposal. I'm asking you to invest in our community, to invest in the small groups who are already doing the work, and to invest with a broad, holistic, and long-term strategies for Forsyth County. Thank you.
May I ask you a question before it's done? Have you called our county manager, Dudley Watts, about ARCA funds?
Yes,
Good.
I know that the Women's Gun Violence Prevention has
Great.
given
Thank
a
you very
proposal.
much.
Yes, thank you.
Richard and Gino, please come forward. State your name and address for the record, please.
I'm Richard Angino, 463 Carolina Circle.
Thank you, sir.
I'm Richard Angino. I'm a resident of Winston-Salem. I'm one of the founders of a group called Folks for Good Housing, which is a discussion group of local folks who are made up of nonprofits, major employers, church groups, housing developers, elected officials, and other folks who are getting frustrated with the lack of new affordable housing being built in the county and the city. I'm also part of several of the shovel-ready housing developments that have the mission to make a dent in the huge housing affordability issue we have here in Forsyth County. With the encouragement of the county, we submitted 3 affordable housing applications for the ARPA funds. We got notice that the applications met all the requirements and that each of them were going to be reviewed at your public meetings and that we could take place to make a case for why we are requesting funds from the county. Prior to the public review process got started, you had already decided to remove the affordable housing applications and effectively table them by stating that they should be sent to the cities. I have been told that this has happened because the county's role was not the lead in housing. If the county's role was not to lead, what does promoting housing options that enhance the quality of life in our community in your mission statement mean? If we were allowed to explain our ARPA applications for the old Budget Inn Hotel, we would have stated that we've been talking to the city for 4 years, and they are not able to help us with this affordable housing. They are now concerned that 100% workforce housing in that location is concentrating poverty. 2 blocks from that site is Baptist Health. A majority of the 8,000 persons who work there qualify for workforce housing. I don't see why people making $40,000 are poverty. But at the same time, people who make $40,000 cannot live in one of the new apartment buildings where 1-bedroom units start at $1,600. Based upon what we started talking with the largest employers in the county and to see if they financially can help us. And because they have employees sleeping in their cars in their parking lots, which is getting frustrating for them. And as part of this, we're trying to keep jobs here. And we've talked to several of the biggest employers. They would like to participate in this transaction, which is the replacing of the Budget Inn. The city does not want to participate. So effectively giving this over to the city is basically cutting off our ability to get some local money from employers as well as the ARPA funds. The gap for building this 74 units is $5 million. We've asked for half of that from the ARPA funds, and the rest we are planning to raise with the general public and from large employers. Oddly, we as citizens of Forsyth County are one of the ones needing to lead to make, which makes no sense. In all of the other big metro counties in North Carolina, the counties are leading on the housing issues since they understand that if they don't have housing that is affordable, they can't attract and keep employers. Just look at Guilford County, which raised $26 million for housing in the last several years, and have now have people living in 600 units because of that. We're watching where Guilford County and Alamance counties are experiencing large employment growth, and their median incomes have now surpassed Winston-Salem. The mill villages weren't built because the mill owners wanted to be nice. They built the mill villages to make businesses profitable, and housing employees was key to the plan. Our plan as a county should be to keep our employers here by creating housing that is affordable. If we don't act, these employers will have no choice but to leave our market, which is a shame for the working folks who rely upon these jobs. My suggestion is you allow us, as the affordable housing applications in the ARPA funds, to continue to have discussions with the county staff, and that we can add some of these employers into the decisions related to this. It just makes sense to keep these jobs in Forsyth County. Thank you very much for your time.
Very thoughtful and insightful. Thank you, sir. Mrs. Sloop?
Joy Williams, please come forward. State your name and address for the record, please.
Joy Williams, 5059 Butterfield Drive. Thank you. I'm so excited to be before you all again, Commissioners. So thank you for your service. Thank you for the year in review. It was very delightful to listen to. And I am here to share with you once again about the importance, which you already know, of collaboration, which some of these groups have already spoken to you about. But I stand before you in a particular process to encourage not just collaboration among agencies that are on the ground in communities, but a process that would invite the government officials, the commissioners in particular, and community directly in specific conversations with some of these agency groups. Trauma-informed care, trauma-informed approaches, that is the term that you might have heard a lot from several different organizations. And according to the Surgeon General of California, who is Dr. Nadine Burke-Harris, she's done a lot of work within trauma. And there are 10 experiences in particular that I would like to read off to you that are important, that 61% of adults in the U.S. have experience in. That is physical, emotional, sexual abuse, physical, emotional neglect, mental illness, incarceration, divorce, separation, domestic violence, substance abuse, and misuse. Now, with all of these traumatic events, there are so many more that have not been researched. But the important thing to know is that there are solutions, and there are easy solutions that can be implemented. Some of these solutions include mental health services, going outside, nurturing healthy relationships, good nutrition, proper sleep, and there are 2 more. I stand before you to encourage what would it look like for this county to not only have an opportunity with the ARPA funds to do some amazing things in the community, but to create a process that will surpass the amount of funds could be expended in. So imagine the future, your legacy, and not only having these funds go to really great organizations in the community, but to have a process in which people are fed, are clothed, and are able to regulate their systems properly. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am.
Mr. Chairman, we'll go to the telephone calls now.
All right.
Thank you.
Hi, will you please turn the volume down on your device?
The future, your legacy, and not only having these funds go to really great organizations.
Hello, are you there?
Hello, are you there?
Yes.
Hi, will you turn the volume down on your device that you're listening to?
Right. Oh, sure. I can turn it off.
Thank
I
you.
was listening to the meeting.
Thank you for calling the Forsyth County Board of Commissioners public session line. This session is for comments only and questions cannot be answered. Please state your name and address for the record.
This is Bob Fikema. I'm the president and CEO with Family Services at 1200 South Broad Street in Winston-Salem.
Thank you. Speakers will be limited to 3 minutes each, and a 30-second warning will be given. You may begin.
Good afternoon, Chairman Plyler, Vice Chairman Martin, Commissioners. Family Services is pleased to have the opportunity to apply for American Rescue Plan Act funding to build a state-of-the-art child development center on the campus of the Commons, a 19-acre property at the intersection of Old Greensboro and Reedsville Roads that is in the process of being revitalized to provide affordable housing to the community. Family Services had provided child care services in Forsyth County since the 1950s. We've been the sole provider of the Head Start program in the county for 55 years and have provided the early Head Start program since 2015. Through these programs, we serve more than 700 families annually, families that live at or below the poverty level. The child development facility that we operate on the WSSU campus is the only child care facility in Forsyth County
that is accredited by the National Association for the Education of Young Children. We are committed to repurposing 2 existing buildings on the Commons campus to become a state-of-the-art child development center serving children from birth to age 5. This center is located in Census Tract number 17, where there are twice as many children under the age of 5 as there are child care slots, and where over 80% of the residents are people of color. The facility is adjacent to Census Tract number 16.02, where there are nearly 7 times as many children under the age of 5 as there are child care slots, and where 90% of the residents are people of color. In other words, we are locating the center in neighborhoods where the need is greatest. We have recent experience in converting a vacated structure into a state-of-the-art child development center. Just this fall, we opened a child development center at 1411 South Broad Street that was formerly occupied by the Salvation Army. If you want to take a break and visit a place that will lift your spirits, I invite you to visit that center. We will be working with the same developer at the Commons who worked with us to transform the Broad Street facility. Family Services is investing its resources in the community, committing more than $3.2 million to bring both the Broad Street and the Commons facilities online. We hope that the county will join us in this effort by providing $500,000 in ARPA funding to establish a child development center that will serve young children from neighborhoods that need one the most. Thank you very much.
You are now available. Thank you.
Thank you for calling the Forsyth County Board. Thank you for calling the Forsyth County Board of Commissioners public session line. This session is for comments only, and questions cannot be answered. Please state your name and address for the record.
Charlie Heritage, P.O. Box 543, Summerfield, North Carolina.
Thank you. Speakers will be limited to 3 minutes each, and a 30-second warning will be given. You may begin.
Okay, thank you. Good afternoon, Commissioners. Thank you for allowing us to make comments during this session. I am calling in regards to the resolution that I believe y'all are getting ready to vote on in regards to ARPA funding and affordable housing. A few months ago, I had the privilege of meeting Kyle Haney with the county and also working with Aisha Carter. They've actually both been great to work with in this process. We were invited to submit an application for funding through ARPA in order to fund a gap in affordable housing in Forsyth County. And I know it's their recommendation now to the board today to defer that funding to the local municipalities. In my case, South Creek Development, we are preparing to build a phase 2 in Louisville off of Stires Ferry Road. We built phase 1, we completed it last year. It leased up in record time, showing the great demand for affordable housing in the county. Phase 2 will be very similar to that. It'll have its own clubhouse, its own playground, its own amenities. With the recent, over the last 18 months, construction prices have just increased tremendously. And so we do find ourselves with a gap in financing for this project. We have gone through the permit process through the town of Louisville and city of Winston-Salem, took us in there, ETJ. However, it is in the county, and so we would just respectfully ask that more consideration be taken to allow these ARPA funds to support the gap on affordable housing. One of the 10 sub-initiatives that was defined by the county for these ARPA funds, one of those 10 specifically mentions affordable housing. So while I appreciate and understand why the county would want the local municipalities, for example, Clemens or Louisville or Winston-Salem, to take a stab at funding that gap first. Some of these smaller towns, such as Louisville, I know it didn't didn't receive as much money as the county, and so it's my understanding that they've earmarked those funds to other needs that town has.
You have 30 seconds.
So, just in closing, I would just ask that the board reconsider approving the resolution, that maybe give us some time to come in and meet with the county and discuss our need to provide affordable housing. Thank you for your time.
Mr. Chairman, we don't have any callers.
Thank you very much. We have a 35-item agenda for the briefing right on top of us, so why don't we take about a 10-minute recess? Is that all right with you, County Manager? All right, we'll take a 10-minute recess. Well, we've had a 10-minute recess, and we have a lot of items to take care of. We're going to have a briefing here in just a few moments on the December 16th meeting, and it'll, as I said, about 36 items on the agenda. We'll get through all of that, but we thank all of you who are in the Commissioners' meeting room for your patience. It's just that this is one of those days when everything kind of dropped in at one time, and we're handling it as best we can. I'll begin this meeting by turning it over to our county manager, Dudley Watts.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good afternoon, board members and staff and guests. We do have some business items for consideration in the formal part of the meeting today, and so we'll go ahead and dive into them. We should be able to get through them fairly quickly. You have reviewed them at least twice, all except for one item which we are walking in. We've reviewed them twice and hopefully have answered all the questions that you might have had. So anyway, I will dive into it, and I will try to remember our process here, so we'll muddle through that. Item 14 is an amendment to the 2020 Schools Capital Maintenance Capital Project Ordinance. This is the $1,735,000 in capital that's part of our sort of normal operating annual budget. In this particular instance, the schools are asking that $1,019,000 be used for the modular classroom piece of it, $216,000 for high school athletics. I think that's $18,000 per school, and then $50,000 just in repair funding.
Questions or comments?
I'd like to make a motion, Martin.
Well, this is a briefing.
No, sir.
No,
It's a meeting.
we're ready.
Yeah, we got to get through the formal. Let us get through these formal items. Unfortunately, we got a whole nother page over here with that, so, yep.
Aren't we?
Yeah, we need to take action on
Yeah,
these
so
ones.
I made a motion. Thank you.
Okay, well, I'll second the motion. All, Mrs. Sluter,
Chairman Plyler?
we're voting.
Yes.
Good.
You need to vote.
Dave Plyler, yes.
Vice Chairman Martin?
Yes.
Commissioner Elamine?
Yes.
Commissioner Kaplan? Commissioner Linville? Commissioner McDaniel? Commissioner Wisenhunt?
Hi.
Are you still awake, Gloria?
Barely.
All right, agenda item 15 is an amendment to the 2018 Forsyth Technical Community College Capital Maintenance Two-Thirds Bond Capital Project Ordinance that approves additional projects. You've got an associated amendment to the 2020 Forsyth Technical Community College Capital Maintenance Two-Thirds Bonds Capital Project Ordinance. This takes, they were actually under budget, $190,095. So it takes those savings, it allocates $151,000 to a chiller at Northwest Campus and the balance to Green Hall.
I'd like to make a move approval, Martin.
I'll
Second,
second it.
Elamine.
Fleming Elamine is, okay, second it.
Chairman Plyler?
Yes.
Vice Chairman Martin?
Yes.
Commissioner Elamine?
Yes.
Commissioner Kaplan? Commissioner Linville? Commissioner McDaniel? Commissioner Wisenhunt?
Aye.
Very good. Agenda item 16 is a resolution approving recommendations related to the request received for consideration of funding through American Rescue Plan Act for Affordable Housing Sub-Initiative and the Gun Violence and Crime Prevention Sub-Initiative. You got an associated amendment to the Pandemic Response Special Revenue Fund, where that's the fund we're going to house all this in. It essentially budgets some staff positions to administer the funds and then takes $7.2 million for premium pay and sort of sets that aside. In terms of the recommendations around the housing, affordable housing sub-initiative, because we did hear a few comments on that, I would just make sort of the comment that as we reviewed all of these initiatives, the value set that we've been working from is how do we ensure that that the board's, that the staff recommendations and ultimately the board action, if you agree with it, really are coordinated between the different agencies and coordinated between the different governmental units, because we're dealing with about $50 million in funding. The schools had over $200 million in funding, and the city, I think, has about $50 million that they are also sort of working through. And so I think that level of coordination has been really important. And, it may be that some of these housing projects maybe come back to you after the municipalities have sort of dealt with it. If you think about all of our involvement in affordable housing projects that Community and Economic Development handles, they've always been cooperative, and our role has always been almost more of a coordinating role, sort of looking to the city to, because they have other, they have those dollars. They on the front end I know the city of Winston on the front end has allocated funding for affordable housing, and then they got a fairly large state appropriation, I think, in the most recently approved state budget. So I think there's a lot of good reasons for the lead agency on these to be the municipalities. I think in round two, we will close out round one. I think we sort of envision that there will be significant dollars there in round two. We can go into that, and really with having the experience we've had through a pretty good process of accepting applications, we can go through a process where if we want to revisit the priorities around sub-initiatives, I think that's an appropriate thing to do. So I'd ask that y'all be thinking about that as we move forward.
That's a good point. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I'd just like to make a comment. I've been asked this question about other projects, and I just said I thought our process was one of being very open for everything. I mean, we've whatever it was, and we've tried to categorize those, because someone said, well, why don't you provide more direction at the outset for what was sort of a priority to apply for? And that's because I said, well, we kind of didn't have any priorities established and really wanted to be open to what people thought. Because the clear issue is the impact of the pandemic on, these are funds to help, improve, you name it, from violence to housing to whatever, and then we'll try to, and this board did spend a lot of time talking about not stepping on school issues, the city issues, as well as Forsyth Tech issues, as well as municipality share. And I think one thing I'd like to ask, because I was speaking with Commissioner McDaniel in our break briefly, and I want you just to verify this for me, because I think I'm right. Is not the housing authority in Guilford County a part of the county commissioners and not a part of the city? I mean, I just, and I only remember that because I was in High Point for a while and working, and went to an issue that the Housing Authority sponsored, and every single county commissioner was there, and no city council people were there. And so I started asking a couple questions, and they have the Housing Authority here reports to the city. In Guilford, it reports to the county. And I think at least that's what I think. And I wanted to verify that to make sure I was right.
Yeah, really as separate authorities, they're actually separate units of government. And so they're actually separate kind of anyway, and I think the city would probably say that. Now, who ultimately created them is probably what you're getting at, and I think you're right about that, but I will check and validate that.
So it would make sense that the Guilford County, if they created it, help provide, and have support and work with them, that basically there would be more county involvement there. Whereas we took an opposite direction with cities, just like libraries are discretionary items.
Yeah. Well, if you think about it, so the other sub-initiatives that are coming at us, behavioral health, and really more of the social services piece, clearly we are an arm of state government. It is, we are in a state supervised, locally administered health and human services, and that's why counties are involved in it. And so that is clearly that's our wheelhouse. And, Winston-Salem is a HUD entitlement community, and so there's that involvement as, governmentally around that. And so I think it's the right thing to do. Clearly, it's up to the board on how you want to see your role in the affordable housing arena. But it's one of those things where, to the extent you do that, you can still coordinate some with the city, but there's the other categories are clearly your arena. Obviously, the education piece is clearly your arena. My suspicion is whatever bubbles up out of whatever city process happens, they're going to be pushing things over to us if they're really outside of their wheelhouse. And so really it's more of defining and sort of understanding and respecting roles. But, we obviously can do anything that you want us to do. To go back, we made this board really made a decision early on, before we knew much about the federal guidelines, to go ahead and start a process to get it out there. And, so that's put us in front of the city. It's put us in front of the other municipalities around that. While it has maybe created some unrealistic expectations around what we can do, I think we were pretty clear that that we were out in front of it. We did want to hear from the community, but that we couldn't really commit. And so, we've gotten guidance as we've gone along. So I guess I want to apologize for people who spent time applying for dollars and then feel like we just push that off. I don't think we minimize those applications, but or the importance of them. But I think the idea that the last caller actually made the comment, he understood that we would sort of rely on the municipality for the lead role in this, and I think that's, we can revisit that if we need to, but that's where we landed.
Just a comment, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for us to allocate these funds in a unique way, so we can think outside the box to a degree with the constraints that have been imposed upon us. So as we try to navigate with the city and the school system, funding sources, I would love to see us have a pool of funds just for this purpose from those three entities to deal with housing, because it is an issue. And I don't think you can transform someone's life more than with a house that they can call their own. And as the county, I know we've provided funds for first-time homeowners through experiment and self-reliance, et cetera. So we've been engaged in this process for a number of years. It's just these funds are very unique for COVID-related negative economic impacts. So as we push forward to try to get the city involved, the school system involved, maybe we can set aside a pool of funds from all three of us to reduce the risk factor to provide some additional housing as we go into the next round of our allocations. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Chairman, I do have a question. Dudley, if you could help me, I think what the problem is that it's confusing communication. And I thought that on the onset of our deliberations in terms of who was going to be responsible for what, we were supposed to have some conversations with the city of Winston-Salem relative to their receiving our request, not approving anything, but just to take a look at that. And then,
Yeah, so if you think about it, the categories actually weren't on the front end. The categories were created when we started analyzing what we got. And so, and it just happened that, 5 or 6 applications fit in that affordable housing kind of category. The ones that dealt more with financial literacy or barriers to housing, I think we've kept in some of the other areas. And so the affordable housing was really just bricks and mortar piece of that. We have had conversations. I think there was initial kind of a little negative reaction about, sort of deferring these from the city side, but I think that's gone away. I think there's actually, I know on the school side, they very much appreciate the fact that we're sharing these applications with them and see in round 2 wanting to continue doing that. And I think the same thing really has happened. Maybe not everybody agrees with that over the city, but Lee seems to have appreciated the fact that we also offered to kind of share our software and process and structure and all that stuff as they reach out to the community.
okay, that's helpful, because I just wanted to make sure that we are communicating with them and they were aware that this was happening.
Yeah,
okay.
I think
Thank
so. All right, so we'd need a motion to approve the resolution and amendment unless there's any other comments.
I'd like to make that motion. Martin.
Dave Plyler, second it.
Chairman Plyler,
Yes.
Vice Chairman Martin,
Yes.
Commissioner Elamine. Commissioner, no, okay. Commissioner Kaplan. Commissioner Linville. Commissioner McDaniel.
Aye.
Commissioner Wisenhunt.
Aye.
All right, thank you. All right, agenda item 17 is a resolution authorizing the purchase of ballistic vests for the Emergency Services Department and to accept a donation of $25,000 from Piedmont Regional Trauma System Incorporated to use toward the purchase of ballistic vests. This is, the total cost was $46,363.18. There's a $25,000 grant, and so this also pulls $23,181.54 from
Comments or questions?
Move to approve. Elamine, pardon me.
Dave Plyler, second.
Chairman Plyler,
Yes.
Vice Chairman Martin.
Yes.
Commissioner Elamine.
Yes.
Commissioner Kaplan. Commissioner Linville. Commissioner McDaniel. Commissioner Whitson-Hunt.
Aye.
All right. Agenda item 18 is a resolution authorizing acceptance of a 2021 Historic Preservation Fund matching grant to continue the Forsyth County Architectural Survey. Update from the Forsyth County Historic Resources Commission. You've got an associated budget ordinance amendment that appropriates the revenues because the municipalities are actually participating in this. And then you've also got a resolution that authorized the interlocal agreement between the county and the participating towns, which are the Village of Clemens, the town of Kernersville, Louisville, Bethania, Walkertown, and Rural Hall to support this. And so we've got that. If I could, Ms. Chairman, we'll go ahead and take the motion in second. Then I'd like to invite Michelle McCullough up just to do a very quick recognition.
All right. Questions, comments?
Move to approve, sir. Elamine.
Plyler, I'll second the motion.
Go ahead.
Chairman Plyler,
Yes.
Vice Chairman Martin,
Yes.
Commissioner Elamine,
Yes.
Commissioner Kaplan, Commissioner Linville, Commissioner McDaniel, Commissioner Whitson-Hunt.
Aye.
Very good. And if I could get Michelle McCullough, she's staff to the Historic Resources Commission from Planning Department. She's going to bring up Kevin Owen and Donna Abernathy, who are outgoing Historic Resources Commission appointees. They've have 8 years of service. They probably felt like they waited 8 years in this meeting. I don't know. But anyway, Michelle did want to thank them kind of publicly, and I know the board would like to for their service as well.
Yes, Chairman Pyler, Vice Chairman Martin, Commission members. Today, I'd just like to acknowledge the energy, the time, the commitment of two members that we've had on the Historic Resource Commission for the last 8 years. And it's a joyous celebration, but it is very sad for us because we are losing two very great volunteers that have given 8 years of their time to look over COA applications, National Register, landmark applications, marker unveilings, marker applications, and more. That big project you just approved that's been going over 3 years. These two people have been instrumental in all of that.
What are you going to do without them?
I don't know. At our November 3rd meeting, we did one of the resolutions, whereas, all the great stuff. I'd just like to share a little bit. Donna Abernathy comes to us with her love being Rural Hall and the Rural Hall Depot. Her father saved that little building, and it is one of our local historic landmarks. And she has invited us in, and she started doing tremendous events during Preservation Month in May there, and then she always does Christmas at the Caboose, so if you haven't been there, you have to get there. I mean, there's hundreds of people there. It's incredible. And again, her commitment and her enthusiasm for the last 8 years has just, it overflows on us all. And Kevin Owen, I have to thank, and I think everybody in the planning department even would tell you, he's been a tremendous member. He's been our architectural person, the person that's a categorical seat. So he has acted in that, giving us his experience and bringing that to every meeting. He served on our marker committee for 4 years and chairing that for a year. And then for 2 years, there's 2-year terms. And then he chaired the HRC for the last 4 years. So again, we are losing two very valuable people. And I just wanted, 8 years is a long time to serve on a county, as a county appointee, no payment. So today I'd just like to give them both a little gift and also I'd like to thank them personally and publicly. So Dawn and Kevin, my staff is here. Bratland and I are both the Historic Resources staff, so Heather's also here. And Kaki Berry, who is the vice chair of the HRC, has also sat through and to be in support and just to thank all of you for everything you do to support our commission. So.
Well, congratulations. Thank you very much for all you've done. I appreciate your being here. Do you want to be reappointed by acclamation today?
Unfortunately, they can't for another 4 years.
Oh, Lord.
But we would take them back.
Mr. Chairman, point of privilege.
Thank you so much, Commissioner and Commissions and Chair. And it's an honor to have been appointed. Thank you. I have thoroughly enjoyed being on the HRC Commission. They have been wonderful to work with, and the staff has been awesome to work with. And I just want to tell you that I want to continue the legacy of my dad, who some of you know, DJ Redding, who was also on the County Planning Board, earlier. I want to carry on his legacy of preservation in that depot, and I can assure you, the freight is moving fast every day on that railroad that's beside the depot, and thanks to Yankee Valley, whose parent company is Gulf in Ohio. And that parade is moving on. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Chairman, point of privilege, please.
Yes, sir.
I want to thank Ms. Abernathy for being an instrumental part of our community. She and her husband both have been vital to the success of our neighborhood. And, Rural Hall is the oldest town we have in Forsyth County. So we should all be aware that that's a very instrumental historical part of our community. And just thank you. And thank you, and thank you again. And pass on our thanks to your husband. Again, thank you.
And the depot that we have, which was, the first one was 1888, but ours was 1907, because Southern built a new one. And proud of it.
You got to write the book about your father.
Thank you.
All right, very good. Item 19 is a resolution authorizing execution of an agreement between Forsyth County and MCCI LLC. It provides digital automation for the Adult and Family Children's Division using Laserfish, including the migration of the adoption records to Laserfish, trying to finish that project out. It's going to be 14,136 images, not to exceed $126,755.
Comments, questions? Okay.
Move to approve. Ellermain.
Linville, second.
Chairman Plyler?
Yes.
Vice Chairman Martin?
Yes.
Commissioner Elamine?
Yes.
Commissioner Kaplan? Commissioner Linville? Commissioner McDaniel? Commissioner Wizenhunt?
Aye.
All right, very good. Item 20 is a resolution approving refunds by the tax assessor and collector of amount of $9,098.56.
Linville, move to approve.
I'll second the motion.
Chairman Plyler?
Yes.
Vice Chairman Martin?
Yes.
Commissioner Elamine?
Yes.
Commissioner Kaplan? Commissioner Linville? Commissioner McDaniel? Commissioner Wizenhunt?
Aye.
Very good. Item 21 is an October 2021 contribution-based benefit cap report.
Questions? Okay.
Linville, move to approve.
Plyler, second.
Chairman Plyler?
Yes.
Vice Chairman Martin?
Yes.
Commissioner Elamine?
Yes.
Commissioner Kaplan? Commissioner Linville? Commissioner McDaniel? Commissioner Wizenhunt?
Aye.
All right, very good. Item 22 is a proclamation recognizing North Carolina National Guard for its assistance to Forsyth County during the COVID-19 pandemic. Right after you awarded that and gave it to them at that meeting, they were extended 1 month. So they are still here. We modified the proclamation to reflect that. So,
Comments, questions?
Ellermain, move to approve.
Plyler, second.
Linville, second.
Chairman Plyler?
Yes.
Vice Chairman Martin?
Yes.
Commissioner Elamine?
Yes.
Commissioner Kaplan? Commissioner Linville? Commissioner McDaniel? Commissioner Wizenhunt?
Aye.
all right. And the last item on the agenda, and it was an added item, is an amendment to the fiscal year 2021-2022 budget ordinance that appropriates funding for the low-income household water assistance program. We added this just because we needed to get this money out to people. I'll let Chantel talk a little bit about what it is.
Thank you, Mr. Manager, and good afternoon, Commissioners. We apologize for having to walk this item in, but we received allocation notice from the state last Wednesday, which is the day before Thanksgiving, and the program started yesterday. So the Department of Social Services received notice of funding for the Low-Income Household Water Assistance Program, which is a federally funded program that provides emergency assistance to low-income households, particularly those with the lowest incomes that pay a high proportion of household income for drinking water and wastewater services. This budget ordinance amendment is necessary to appropriate the revenue and expenditures for the program, and there are no county dollars involved. The total amount of funding to be appropriated is $789,547. Of this amount, $130,092 is for administrative cost, and $659,455 is for payments to the water utility. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. I also have Mia Stockton, the Division Director of Economic Services, here if needed.
Questions or comments?
And I assume that the eligibility piece wasn't all that difficult because it mirrors the low-income energy assistance work that's already being done. Maybe that's a question for Mia, I don't know.
That would be a Mia question.
Okay, so it's not like they,
Chantel?
it's not like we had to redo it.
Yes, Ms. Wizenhunt?
How long does this program last? When does it expire?
Until the money runs out. Mia, come on up if you will. Yeah.
It's September 30th, 2023, or until funds are exhausted. We do anticipate the funds will be exhausted prior to 2023, but Mia, please add anything that I'm missing.
Yes, if we can have you come back, Mia, I'm sorry. Thank you, Chairman, for allowing me to ask her a question. Could you just kind of walk us through what it would look like for a constituent to come and apply for these services, please?
Yes, good afternoon, Commissioners. Thank you. Can you all hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, so for the constituents to come and apply for the application, they can apply online with the website at the epass.nc.gov, or they can make an application at the local Department of Social Services, or always they can just call us, 336-703-3800.
Thank you. And one other question that I have, so that, I don't know how the marketing information is getting out there for individuals to know that this is available for them. Are we sending them something or an email or something for those individuals that may have already applied for some of the ERAP services?
So, yes, ma'am. So the state did some information, and then yesterday Todd Luck put out a press release as well. After we get the program up and running, we are going to do some mailers to some target groups. We received information directly from the city of Winston-Salem, the water vendor, of those individuals who have a disconnection or pending disconnection.
Good, you covered my question. I'd like to make a motion for approval. Martin?
I'll second.
Oh, go ahead.
Plyler?
Chairman Plyler?
Yes.
Vice Chairman Martin?
Yes.
Commissioner Elamine?
Yes.
Commissioner Kaplan? Commissioner Linville? Commissioner McDaniel? Commissioner Wizenhunt?
Aye.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
I've got an item that I have shared with all of you that I'd like to bring before you today. I've had a number of discussions back and forth with email with our county attorney, and I've kind of boiled down to a motion I'd like to make, and if it's the second, that we can have some discussion. But the motion is a little different than I've kind of rethought it in a little different way. And the motion I'd like to make is that the staff solicit a second legal interpretation on whether an employee who, one, met the criteria for receiving premium pay for working during the pandemic, two, was employed in October when the premium pay plan was adopted, and three, retired before the December payment date, could receive the premium pay that they basically qualified for. That's the motion.
I'll second that motion. Do we have any discussion?
And I think and certainly the county attorney can add into this part, but I'd like to make just a couple introductory sort of just explanations. During this discussion, we actually, back when we adopted this in October, we actually discussed even prior to that, I think I even brought up the very issue of just, are we going to do something about retirees? And part of the discussion, these were people who retired before we acted on the premium pay plan. People who would have retired before we acted. And it was explained that they couldn't be paid, et cetera, and so forth, and went through that. And I said, well, certainly those folks, they were not working at the time that occurred. So, but I got to thinking about those people who qualified and were still working. This is a very small subset of retirees. People who actually were working when the premium pay plan was approved, they qualified, and then retired before the actual payout. And the legal precedent issue that and I will certainly let Gordon explain it, but as I understand it, is one where there was a previous case that went to the North Carolina Supreme Court over an action of a county commission that wanted to give severance pay to the county manager, but their action occurred after the county manager had retired, and the issue was that he could not be paid. And for me, the interpretation is that the board acted after the superintendent, in this case, the superintendent, but the county manager had already retired. In this case, our board action occurred before these people retired. And I have thought of an easy way to have done this was at retirement, they could have just been paid in their last check, and then we don't get into this issue of whether they were, now they've already retired. It would have been on that last day. But our action actually said they had to be employed in December. And I just think that those folks, the purpose of it was to actually, they earned it. I don't know there are very many. There are 2 people who have emailed. That's all I do not know the 2 employees that email me, but there are 2 that fall into that category. One of them I know retired. Their retirement date was effective yesterday, December 1. And I just feel like that if there might be a different interpretation, which would be that the fact that they were working when we proved it, that it could be actually a retroactive payment, because it is not, as I've gone back and forth with Gordon, it is not a payment for services to be rendered, it's a payment for services that were rendered, and now we've done all the, and I just think it's a matter of collecting the administration, if you will, to do the verification and then payment. So I'm just looking at, maybe there's another opinion. Gordon, understand. I do understand exactly what you said. I do. I thought you interpreted my email a little differently, but after I read another one that you wrote, I realized that I misinterpreted what I thought you interpreted, and I do understand the basically what he is saying as it could be. I just see one fact. The facts of the case appear to be different than the North Carolina Supreme Court case. I stand to be corrected. I just feel like I'm advocating for a small group of employees, and I just think it's the right thing, and I certainly want to do it.
County Attorney Gordon Watkins.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll just say there may be a little bit of misunderstanding about the Supreme Court case. The facts are not exactly as you stated, and I may not have explained them adequately before. What happened in that case was the county attorney for Warren County announced that he was going to retire in a month. And at that meeting, the board gave him a severance package of $5,073.12 to be effective a month later. And so that went, the citizens sued, and that went to the Supreme Court. North Carolina Supreme Court said that that was not an allowable payment. He'd already announced his intention to retire. It's what they said was you can't give retroactive payment. You can't give payment for service which has already occurred. Compensation needs to be focused on what will be done. What our premium pay plan covered in 2-year increments. The first year increment was, I believe, April 2020 to March 2021, and then the year after that. And so the first year period, while it's finished, part of it, and I know Deputy Manager Robinson explained this before the board on more than one occasion, that was also serving a retention purpose because the payout wouldn't be until December. So even though the vote was in October, what you stated, what the board agreed to, is that the payment wouldn't be earned unless that employee worked until the payout date in December. And I understand that'll be 2 weeks from today, December 16th. If you want a second opinion, I gave you one in the first email I sent out, which was from an attorney, Carol Malonzi, who's also a professor at the School of Government, who very clearly said that retroactive payment is not allowed. And so the problem is, if we're talking about today's December, we can't go back to people who've already retired because that would be retroactive. So there's an issue there with that. I spoke very briefly with Shannon Hutchins, HR Director, and she doesn't have an exact figure, but she said there could be 20 or more people who have retired between October and today. And the problem is, if you say someone who retired on October 7th, well, then the payment is entirely retroactive for that person. So that would violate the Supreme Court case. So my opinion, and again, I'm trying to protect the board. I'm trying to protect you. I'm trying to protect the county. I didn't write this policy. I do think it's a good policy, and you as a board had 3 options. You debated that in great detail. There was a motion for option 3. It failed 3-4, and then I believe option 2 was approved unanimously. So what my role is to interpret the law. I think in this case the law is very clear, and I haven't heard anyone legally who said the contrary. But I'm happy to proceed as you'd wish.
Yeah, I think my only comment, and I won't belabor this, we still have more to do, and it was simply to say that the premium pay was for something that was earned. This is not like let's just come up with a severance pay for the county attorney in Warren County. And I realize it is a payment that's occurring afterwards. And yes, we did agree on December, but I'm saying could we not change our minds? I'm looking at discretion of the commission to change its mind about a very small group of employees that got missed. It's just a change, and I'm looking at should not the commission have that authority to change the December deadline retroactive to the other, and that it's a different set of facts than the North Carolina Supreme Court case.
So the problem is this, and this is the problem we face across the board with ARPA, is there are federal allowances and there are federal requirements, and we have to comply with those, and we certainly are complying with those. We, Forsyth County, are a product of the state, and so we also have to apply the state law. And sometimes the state law is more restrictive than the federal law. So even though, yes, you're correct, we talk about a period which ended several months ago, that alone would not be legal under North Carolina law. Saying we're going to pay people for what they did last year, that would not be legal. So the legality, where we got the legal part, is the perspective, the more than 2 months that people had to continue to work in order to get this payment. So that brought us under North Carolina law, so it was allowable. So if we get rid of that, then we've lost the ability to grant the premium pay. And so, sometimes what you may consider just or right is not legal, and that's unfortunate.
I just felt compelled to make that motion.
Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Wisenhunt?
Yes, I am very opposed to this motion. I cannot tell you how many times in workshops here that we have been warned that we better follow the guidelines explicitly. For the federal, they are very serious about these guidelines. And if we start doing this, change our mind on one thing, the next thing you know, something else will pop up. And another thing I want to point out, why are we going to vote on something that has not been briefed 2 times?
Because we don't have any guidelines for operating our meetings, and as I recall, you were the one that asked that we postpone that for another for the other session.
We do have guidelines. We do have guidelines, and supposedly you were supposed to bring them to us, but
I did.
This is something that we should not we should not go against federal guidelines. We could get in serious trouble and have to repay money.
Commissioner Kaplan? Okay. Commissioner Martin?
Chairman Pryler, if I may.
Oh, Commissioner McDonald.
I'm just going to play a little devil's advocate here and see, this is the reason that I went so hard previously about following what the federal guidelines were. We made changes, or we reconstructed the definition of what the premium pay was to offer these tiers. But now, Chairman Martin, I'm in favor with you ethically on this, but no, I'm in favor with you because I know how it feels. But ethically, I can't, because I don't want to do anything that's against our federal guidelines. But again, in the future, I hope this kind of helps us to follow what the definitions of those things were. We were supposed to give across the board, and it would have But we changed those, and now he wants us to change this today, so I just wanted to make my comments about that, so thank you.
Well, just for clarification, Gordon, are you saying this idea is in violation of the federal guidelines? I never heard that as an issue. I thought it was all about a state issue here and about this Supreme Court case.
It is state law that I'm talking about.
Right. It's not the federal guidelines that we're talking about. It is a state issue. It's not the ARPA issues. It is this, and that was the only issue on that. It's not the federal guidelines.
He's saying that.
Commissioner Kaplan.
I'm also unclear. Gordon, did we defeat this proposal several weeks ago when we had the 3 issues before us?
So, not exactly. Commissioner Martin, as he stated, brought up a related issue about paying people who had already retired, and that never made it into any of the options. So it was discussed, and it was not approved, but it wasn't formally voted up or down.
And it was discussed about retirees prior to the premium pay plan being adopted, not people who retired after it was adopted.
Additional discussion, comments?
So Chairman Pryler, yeah, so Chantel, she's not here, our Human Resources Director is not here today, but, oh yeah, there you are. Do you know how much it would increase our premium pay to add these additional folks? Shannon, and I'm sorry, I'm tired.
So to answer that question, good afternoon, Commissioners. To answer that question, no, I don't know how much it would cost, because what would need to happen there is, we would have to get some information back from the departments as to where they would fall. I will say I did pull a report, and for those that retired November 1st through December 1st, there was 7 of those, and I think that there was a total of 12, Gordon, who has retired since October.
Yeah, and I guess the only thing I would add to the discussion, because a lot of the focus was on a retention tool pushing another payment out, and we are in fairly dire straits in terms, at least in a couple of departments, around staffing. In fact, I almost want to ask you if you're okay with me going to Secretary Falwell and asking if temporarily he could do something to remove barriers so that retirees could come back into service without any type of an issue. And so, I got it. There certainly feels like, I certainly understand Commissioner Martin and where he is. We hope that the board's action to set this up actually gets people to reevaluate whether or not they want to retire or not. Because right now, the labor shortage is really the singular biggest threat we have in county government. And we need our great employees to stay with us. And it's a function of sort of desperate industries trying to figure out what they got to pay. There is so much disruption in compensation and competitive situations right now, particularly around construction jobs, maintenance jobs. I got to tell you, nursing jobs, you've all heard that travel nurses can make over $100,000. Those have been so disruptive in this marketplace that my appeal to you as a board from a public policy perspective would be to try to figure out how we get as many people to stay in this employment market until the disruption that sort of settles out some way. It's a pretty dire situation.
Let me reply to that because, I don't necessarily, I think Don Martin's heart is in the right place. Oh, yeah. But we're talking about a lot of different issues today. And at this point, I think we've reached the point where the county manager has offered an opportunity to at least make another supreme effort talking with the treasurer of the state of North Carolina, who incidentally is from Winston-Salem and is familiar with this type of government question, and see if there is any way through this maze of problems and needs that would help us. So I would be probably at this point more willing to go the extra mile and see what we can do. That's just my opinion.
Mr.
Yes.
Chairman, just a little more discussion. I thought maybe I could not have any myself, but Mr. Attorney, according to what you're saying, there was some case law decided by Supreme Court. And that was when they decided on, I don't recall exactly what you said, what it had to do was a county manager that was paid some money after he left. When they make vote on something like that, that is the law, I suppose. Is that correct?
Yes, it is the law, and it's very clear in this circumstance that we have to follow that law, and you all obviously took an oath to follow the law of North Carolina. So I understand some consternation, but at the end of the day, we have to follow North Carolina law.
Well, I'm sorry about this situation, but I know how sorry is. Sorry don't necessarily make a person feel better, I can tell you that from experience, and we've all probably had the same kind of experiences. And the attorney says it's just contrary to the law, and I'm just not going to do that.
And I was not suggesting that. I was suggesting, all I was asking for is that, 'cause I think the facts of the case are different. The county attorney does not. I think we have it's a different issue, and it could be decided differently. Could be, I don't know. He believes it will not. All I was asking was for another opinion on that matter. Not on whether to do it or not, but could we do it? I don't want to do anything against the law either.
Well, I wasn't suggesting you was saying that we ought to do that. I was just saying what it was I was thinking. That's the reason I asked him to question. Was there anything that, I don't know whether it is or not, but it kind of goes back to some of the things that I say sometime about have we looked in something enough to make decisions on, and then some think, well, it's just taking too much time, killing time and kicking it down the road. Is there something we missed in all of this, Mr. Attorney?
No, you made this decision on October 7th. The decision has been made. There was a discussion. I remember the deputy manager and I remember the vice chairman talked about retention, specifically the retention dates. And so retention doesn't mean anything if somebody can retire and still get the funds. So that was specifically discussed among you all. So this is not a surprise. I realize somebody was disappointed. People are always disappointed. I don't know how many, there are about 2,000 employees and one or two may have complained, but anyhow, I don't believe you missed anything, and you voted on this 8 weeks ago.
Well, I'll just say this. I'm sorry again, but probably not going to make the people feel any better. I'm not going to oppose the motion. If it passes, and there is a second opinion, and it's along with the county attorneys, then that matter will automatically be, I would think, settled. But if it happened to be contrary to it, then I would give it consideration. But I'm going to vote against. Just going to vote against the motion as it is.
I'm going to say one more thing, and I'll say nothing else. I promise the last issue. I think the purpose of the ARPA money in paying employees was for working during the time at which it was hazardous to their health. I do not believe that the purpose of the ARPA money was for retention bonuses. I know we talked about it, but I don't think that was the purpose of ARPA, was to retain employees. It was to reward them for working for putting their lives on the line to serve people in this community. That's what I think it was for. I think the interpretation is a little different. That's it. And and certainly all of you, I mean, if I'm the only one voting, that is fine. I felt like I had to do it. Sorry.
Additional comments? Let me propose that we delay any vote on this matter until we've given the staff an opportunity to talk with the Treasurer of North Carolina and see if there is a way to make this work, this being the questions that have arisen from Vice Chairman Martin. And I think that'll give you at least an opportunity to think more about what's going on, if it is. If it comes back from the governor's, not from the governor, from the state treasurer, then that probably will make a big difference. But at this point, if we called for a vote on this, it's dead in the water. There's no way it's going to pass. There's only one vote for sure, and that's Don. But Don's I got to tell you, in my opinion, he's an excellent member, and I think we ought to give him, as I would hope we could give Richard or anybody else on this board, every opportunity. And the only opportunity I see now is to delay the vote until we get some information that would either change our minds or not.
Mr. Chairman, I don't think that what I was going to ask the Secretary, the Treasurer, has any influence on this matter whatsoever. That's just, it's a separate issue around how we try to stabilize the labor force. So I don't know necessarily that you would get an answer back from him that would change it in any way.
Any further comment on it? You want to go ahead and call for the vote? Okay. All in favor of the motion made by Commissioner Martin, please raise your hand.
Got a roll call.
I'm sorry. I'm still, Mrs. Sloop, you're still in the leader's chair.
That's correct. Chairman Plyler?
No.
Vice Chairman Martin?
Yes.
Commissioner Elamine?
No.
Commissioner Kaplan? No. Commissioner Linville?
No.
Commissioner McDaniel?
No.
Commissioner Wisenhunt?
No.
Very good. So briefing, we can take a short recess if you want, or we can dive right into it.
We need to adjourn, and then our MIS staff needs a few minutes.
Yeah, so maybe 5 minutes.
All right, we'll take a 5-minute recess.